Hi everyone, it's Hannah here from Tula Being Online Yoga Studio. So today I thought that we would work through super quick mini workshop on a few alternatives to downward facing dog. Now you might have heard the phrase downward facing dog is a resting pose. And I really laugh at this, and I laugh at it because I have been one of those teachers back in the day that occasionally even threw that out there. I am really aware that downward facing dog is not a resting pose anymore. So downward facing dog is definitely not a really easy and obtainable pose. I have got another video to check out that's just purely on downward facing dog and giving you a few little pointers as to where and how you might like to position your body. So please do feel free to check out that one. But today, this is about using different shapes instead, an alternative instead of downward facing dog. Perhaps you've got issues with your hands, your wrists, like I did not so long ago. Perhaps it's just not a pose that you're really comfortable in, or you just want to jazz it up and change it up. Some of these alternatives aren't necessarily easier, they're just different. So hopefully I can give you a few different options here. So just a little reminder, downward facing dog, just in case you forgot that one or haven't ever heard of it. Downward facing dog is this V-like shape, hands and feet to the earth, bum up into the sky, and you might like to have a little bend into those knees until you find yourself comfortable enough, and that might never be the case, to attempt to bring heels closer to the ground. Never feel that you must match the shape that I'm currently in. You've got to work with your own body structure. So instead of downward facing dog, I might sort of start here with an alternative that is not necessarily going to be easier. It's just a different variation. So if I still want to keep the integrity of the shape quite similar here, I would think about maybe coming down onto my forearms, often referred to as dolphin pose. And what I've done here is I've tried to bring my elbows to the ground pretty much directly underneath my shoulders. Now we want to have some strength here in the shoulders, and we want that flexibility. So if you struggle to reach your arms really easily up above your head and then also have that bend and the elbows pulling back, this is possibly not the pose for you. So if you struggle to get kind of that shape, just being in a sat position, let's say your elbows are much further forwards, it's possible that this is not a good place for you to hang out. So I'm just going to pop myself back into dolphin pose. What I'm attempting to do is actually push my heart back towards my toes. Because I'm talking to you, I'm being a little bit naughty through my core. I want to think about drawing the lower ribs back in and feeling strong through my shoulders and strong through my core. And again, you can have as much of a bend as you need into those knees. Your hands don't have to be as wide as mine. I've got my hands roughly the same width as my shoulders. It could be that the hands come closer together. Some even will interlace the fingers here, but this can be a great option. What we want to try not to see here is this sort of big dip or coming forward. It's probably best to avoid hanging out in this pose if we're much more in this kind of shape or this shape. So I might again do another breakdown specifically on these poses, but for now I'm kind of just trying to skip through and give you a few different options here. So another one that you might think about could be tabletop. This is definitely a classic. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're taking the weight off of your wrists, but I'll give you a bit of an alternative even in tabletop here. And again, this is definitely something that I tend to go to if I'm just feeling a bit fatigued or I just want to go a bit slower, a bit more gentle in my own body. So tabletop, hands underneath the shoulders, and the knees underneath those hips. So again, if you're finding that you've got any issues with those wrists, perhaps you would be comfortable enough to use a fist on the ground. Don't be worried about doing that. Often this is a stronger kind of structure for the wrists if that's necessary. What we're trying to avoid doing here is a big old slouch or a big round or a drop. I'm seeing if I can keep a little bit of integrity in that spine. So nice long spine. Tabletop. So another alternative here, especially if your wrists are really quite an issue and you don't want to use fists on the ground, could then again being coming on down onto those forearms, back into sort of a dolphin tabletop hybrid. And again, I've planted my elbows roughly under the shoulders. I try to avoid just kind of slouching here. I do want to keep a little bit of integrity, just like in that downward dog, little gentle hug of lower ribs in. And I'd be looking straight down here, not kind of yanking my gaze forward, straight down, roughly between those arms on the floor. So from here, maybe you would choose to do a melting heart or a puppy pose variation. Possibly difficult to add through a flow vinyasa class, but I'll still give it to you anyway. So perhaps it would be into that puppy pose, hips stacked on top of the knees, and then reaching the arms forwards. I bring the elbows at least shoulder width, if not a little bit wider in this shape. So puppy pose, we don't tend to keep a really strong core in. I actually would let my belly soften, let the heart soften down. This pose is possibly not a pose that I would regularly go to in a flow scenario. So if you're moving through a vinyasa, this is possibly not where I would go, but it might be a place where you'd hang out if your instructor is asking you to hang out in a downward dog. And then finally, the last option that I'm offering today is, of course, child's pose. And you could have the knees wide, big toes to touch, forehead softening to the earth. Maybe your arms are out in front of you. Again, I've chosen to widen my elbows. I try not to have them super narrow in this posture. Or again, another alternative, knees closer together, variation of child's pose with the arms hanging out beside the legs. So you might want to play around with some of these options the next time that you hit the mat and be playful with it. I definitely will choose different movements in my own practice. I like the variety of these, even if I'm physically feeling fine. Some of them just feel great on a particular day. So don't feel that one is definitely easier than the other. Dolphin and downward facing dog probably are going to be the hardest ones to nail in the physicality of it and also holding them. They're a bit more strenuous than the others, but feel free to kind of work your way through them. Some are going to be easier to add into the middle of a vinyasa part, and again I'll do another video about that vinyasa and the Chutaranga and alternatives that we might use in those moments. A sun salutation, those videos will be coming to you very soon. I will endeavor to keep updating these videos as time goes on, and as always would love your feedback. So if you have any other alternatives, you might even ping a little comment down underneath and add in your alternatives or different moves that you enjoy moving your body through.